A huge Jays trade is incoming as Ben Nicholson-Smith has dropped a massive Jays trade update, revealing in a report some huge information surrounding not only Ross Atkins' plans, the trade deadline inches closer and closer, but specifics surrounding moves to come. I'm going to break that down as well as discuss multiple huge updates ahead of what's going to be an exciting game tonight and following the biggest series win we've seen in an extremely long time and arguably the biggest regular season series win in years. Stay tuned for all of this episode, folks. Before we get into it all, if you're part of the percentage or aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Jays content. Your guys' support has been unbelievable. Thank you guys for it. You guys have been absolute beasts with the support. And folks, we're going to be talking about a bunch of different things on this episode. Of course, we're going to go into some updates about tonight's game later on, how the Jays are currently playing. But something more important, or not more important rather, but something that's also, equally as important is how Ross Atkins is going to bolster this team come the trade deadline. And Ben Nicholson-Smith dropped an article recently with a ton of intel, and a huge shout out to him for it, but also some reporting inside that is very crucial. Let's start with this. So essentially the article that he dropped is not only detailing within it some big, plans for the trade deadline within this month, July 31st, but also what players to look out for the Jays. And you can see here, he headlines the article by saying, platoon bats are available for a modest price. Now, let's rewind a few days ago to when Ross Atkins came out and said, you can see there at the bottom, the second paragraph, that the Jays are interested in acquiring a right-handed hitter to add to the lineup. If that's still the case 3 or 4 weeks from now, the cost of acquiring a veteran like Andrew McCutchen or Harrison Bader likely wouldn't be high. I think the Jays are going to strive for higher than that because David Schneider has had a bit of an emergence, which has allowed them to kind of maybe soar for the sky and shoot for the moon here. Someone like Ramon Laureano or Rob Schneider might cost more since they also play in the AL East. But even then, we're not likely talking about one of the Jays' top 10 prospects going out in a trade for one of these guys. So Ben Nicholson-Smith kind of linking and, throwing out some names out there that he's heard within the industry, we assume, which is Ramon Laureano and Rob Schneider. And let's talk about these guys a little bit because there's been multiple new reports. There's been rumors for a while. I haven't covered them quite yet. This is the first time on the channel surrounding Ramon Laureano. Now, again, the biggest issue, I guess, here is that they're in the AL East, but I don't think the Orioles necessarily care about that this year because of how bad they've been. And Ramon Laureano is someone that is an interesting name, and I think one that Ben Nicholson-Smith mentions it, and I just think it's a very good shout here. He mashes lefties, and he's been a fairly good hitter for the entirety of his career. Of course, I believe he got suspended for a PED sent a while ago, and he was with maybe in the Athletics. Regardless, you see this year on the left in 2025, he has an 868 OPS with 10 home runs. So not too crazy on the power front, but he has been really good against lefties, and also randomly one of the better fielders in baseball, at least when it pertains to arm strength. So that would obviously be decent, but we do have a lot of fielders as is. But you look at some of his advanced analytics, like he grades out really, really good. And Ben Nicholson-Smith came out and in that article and said it wouldn't cost a top 10 prospect. I think those are the moves that the Jays are going to be striving for because the Jays have a lot of guys slightly outside or maybe slightly inside and, around the top 10 prospect rankings. Guys like Alan Roden, who's the Jays' 5th ranked prospect. But then you have guys on the outside that have slowly started to climb up. Even guys like Charles McAdoo, Yohando Panago, all these different guys have even, Joey Loperfido, guys who are, have had, and again, Loperfido's, I don't even know if he's definitely not considered a prospect. I guess he is technically a prospect, but he is 24, 25 years old, right? He's one of the guys who'd be a 4A player. Those are the type of guys you'd have to give up for a guy like, Ramon Laureano, or who we'll dive into in a minute now, Rob Schneider. And I think that's the avenue the Jays are going to go for players like this. And we know they need to, increase their platoon bats. We think back to last year, Jesse Winker, Justin Turner, part of the Jays, IKF, a part of the Jays, Mark Hanna, Josh Bell, they all go for very little, right? And, for Ramon Laureano or Rob Schneider, that would help give the team some surefire power. And you can see, or just surefire, handedness against lefties. And you can see here, again, Rob Schneider is not necessarily a power hitter. And would I like the Jays to go for someone who has some more power? Absolutely. I think going for a really big power bat, there's just not many available. And for Rob Schneider, a lefty specialist, acquiring him for what according to Ben Nicholson-Smith will be a non-top 10 prospect, I think you do that 10 times out of 10. And yes, there is an argument to be made that David Schneider is doing that right now. And if he keeps this up for the next 2 to 3 weeks, maybe we change our conversation. But I think adding an MLBer who is experienced at this level can help in the playoffs, can help towards their push to the playoffs, and help just win the AL East. Adding a guy like Ramon Laureano or Rob Schneider, I love the idea. And let me know down below, out of the two, who you would prefer here, because we know they want to add a right-handed bat. Both of these guys can be got for pretty cheap, maybe a bit of a price tag increase specifically for Rob Schneider, because if the Red Sox are still involved in the, in the AL East, the wild card race, things like that, and both of them are, unfortunately, AL East opponents and rivals to a degree, But if you can get him for cheap, I like both of these ideas. And the Jays linked to him by Ben Nicholson Smith. Now, let's dive into some more insight here because this is a pretty truly packed article full of insight for the trade deadline. Pretty big update. So he also goes on to say that anyone who can start a playoff game will cost multiple prospects. The returns of Yusei Kikuchi, Jack Flaherty, and Zach Eflin last year reminded us how expensive starting pitching can be. And this is, of course, pertinent to the Blue Jays because they need starting pitching. You can see here at the bottom, applied to the 2025 Blue Jays. If someone like Merrill Kelly is available, he'll likely require a 3-prospect return. While he's not an ace, Kelly's fully capable of starting in October, and his $7 million salary means lots of contenders will want in. A true ace like Jacob deGrom would presumably cost even more, but pitchers of that caliber are rarely available. If there's no good comp from 2024, the Rangers could simply name their price. And of course, we'll have another video covering this probably, but I'm not saying the Jays are going to go out and get a guy like Jacob deGrom. I think that's a little bit probably towards the top end of it. But at the same time, like, you need a starting pitcher if you are the Toronto Blue Jays. And I think Merrill Kelly is once again, now, is this, Ben Nicholson Smith reporting that they're interested in Merrill Kelly? Maybe. He's hinting that the fact that, he's an option. He's naming these players intentionally. Merrill Kelly makes all the sense in the world. And I've been covering him on the channel for a while. He is the guy that I think the Jays should go after. He's someone who can, he's not an ace, but he can play in the playoffs. And maybe the Jays need an ace. Maybe they need Jacob deGrom, and I'll have a video covering him, in the future. You need to focus on guys that are obtainable. Would Merrill Kelly cost a lot? Yes. Would he cost the firm? Maybe. Does that mean they shouldn't go for him? I think they need another starter. Now, maybe they have internal hope and internal confidence and, internal aspirations for Max Scherzer, for Alek Manoah, for even maybe Bowden Francis to do that. But I think right now, of course, you have Eric Lauer starting tonight's game. You got to see what you can get. And Merrill Kelly, is he worth this crazy amount of prospects he would cost? Probably not in hindsight, or in a nutshell. In hindsight, maybe we'll look back and we'll say, hey, we probably shouldn't have done that. But your team is first in the AL East right now, and you have to continue to push and do as much as you can to give them a chance here. And that's one of the biggest things. So let me know down below what your thoughts are on that. It's going to be interesting. You can see here, it kind of ended it by saying, well, Atkins will surely shop the section of the market. The expectation should be that the cost of a number 2 or 3 starter would be 3 interesting minor leaguers or young major leaguers, including a notable headliner. And while the Jays might be willing to pay this price, it's not fully within their control, as sellers will ultimately determine to zero in on the farm systems they like. With that in mind, a team like the Marlins will be able to call their shots on a pitcher like Sandy Alcantara, just like the Jays did with Yusei Kikuchi a year ago. So a lot of interesting names going up here. I think Merrill Kelly makes sense. I think Ramon Laureano makes sense. And of course, Rob Schneider. It's going to be interesting to see. And again, if they're talking about some interesting minor leaguers or major leaguers, Joey Loperfido's name, Aurelvis Martinez's name keeps coming up on these reports. So let me know down below what your thoughts are on this. And let's pivot a little bit here now to something a little bit, I guess, more fun, but also, equally as fun. We got a Jeff Passan legacy tweet now. The last time we could think back to Jeff Passan tweeting about the Toronto Blue Jays in a positive light, it's probably the 2021 season. And we think about all the different tweets about how good their lineup is. We're talking about 21-year-old, whatever it was, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Marcus Semien, George Springer, all these different guys, not Dalton Varsho, but George Springer, Teoscar Hernandez, Lourdes Gurriel Jr., all these different guys. We got one of those last night. On May 25th, the Toronto Blue Jays lost 13-0, had a 25-27 record, and were in 4th place in the AL East. On July 3rd, the Jays finished a 4-game sweep of the Yankees to move to 49-38 and took over 1st place in the AL East. 5 weeks can change everything. Folks, guess what? They did change everything. The weekend changed everything, or this week changed everything. Canada Day week. It has been truly the most fun, baseball that, at least this is the most fun. This is the funnest or most fun, whatever that's a word, stretch of baseball I've ever covered here on, Jays Digest, doing it for years. This is the most fun I've ever had doing it, and it is simply because of the fact that this is the best this team has played, and it's exciting. This is what we live for as fans, right? You got to ride the lows, unfortunately, and we saw that last year, and we saw it times this year. So you can ride the highs, and the highs right now, the Toronto Blue Jays leading your AL East, heading into a very winnable series against the Angels. And folks, this is the exciting part as a fan. We get to enjoy it, we get to really feel it, and hopefully the Jays will win tonight, and you can keep feeling it with me every step of the way as I continue to post daily content for you all. So let me know down below what your thoughts are. Also wanted to point out this horrible take here back from Yankee World. Just going to throw this out there. You can see here it was posted on the most unfortunate baseball post, whatever it was, an unfortunate post on Twitter. 6 games up, heading into Memorial Day. We finally have a cakewalk division, man. I prayed for times like this. This is from a Yankees fan. Not throwing shade, but I just wanted to point it out there because it blew up a little bit in Jays land. It was a little bit funny. It goes to show how quick a division can change. And from 25-27 back in, May, or whatever it was, to now 49-38. Folks, this team is different. The Jays vibe is different. Reinforcements are on the way, and you guys have been fantastic. You guys have been beasts. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you later.